What happens when a carefully constructed global narrative finally shatters, and the palace walls stop holding back the truth? For years, the world was sold a specific story: a fairy tale exit, a crusade for privacy, and an unstoppable media empire built on pure humanitarian ambition. But tonight, that multi-million-dollar spin hasn't just cracked, it has completely imploded. Sources close to the future king report that Prince William has reached his absolute limit, confirming what royal observers have suspected all along. The foundational claims of the Sussex brand were built on embellished origins, calculated PR maneuvers, and systematic contract violations. From using forbidden royal titles on commercial platforms to the devastating collapse of $120 million in streaming and publishing deals, the fallout is no longer a matter of opinion. It's documented on the record. Is this the final, irreversible unraveling of the most controversial royal split in modern history? How did an empire powered by Netflix checks and global prestige dissolve into 18 staff departures, quiet contract cancellations, and impending legal reckoning? Tonight, we aren't looking at tabloid rumors. We are breaking down the signed agreements, the paper trail, the origin stories that failed basic fact checks, and the specific legal mechanism Prince William is preparing to deploy. If you're ready for the raw, unfiltered breakdown that other channels are afraid to cover, hit that like button, subscribe to Palace Insider, and let's dive right in. The Sandringham Agreement was never meant to be a suggestion. It was a formal, binding operational framework negotiated at the highest level of the British state, written down in plain English, approved by Queen Elizabeth II, and published directly onto the official royal website where it remains accessible to this day. The core condition of that exit strategy was simple, non-negotiable, and completely unequivocal. Harry and Meghan were allowed to step back from their roles as senior working royals and retain their Duke and Duchess titles, but they explicitly agreed that they would not use their Her Royal Highness or His Royal Highness titles in any public, commercial, or professional capacity whatsoever. That was the foundational compromise that allowed them to walk away into financial independence, while preserving the dignity of the monarchy. Yet, fast forward to recent months, and those exact forbidden terms have reappeared across multiple commercial platforms, in documented correspondence, and directly on camera in Meghan's own voice. This is not a matter of media spin or tabloid sensationalism. These are three concrete, fully documented incidents on platforms with global audiences that directly violate the signed 2020 agreement. First came the unedited social media post featuring official correspondence where the forbidden title sat prominently at the very top, broadcast directly to millions of followers on a commercial platform with zero clarification or diplomatic disclaimer. Then came the commercial promotional gift sent directly to media personalities like podcast host Jamie King, where personal branding materials again featured the precise royal styling she had agreed in writing never to use commercially. But the most undeniable breach occurred on camera during production for Netflix, where Meghan directly stopped a fellow guest, Mindy Kaling, to explicitly correct her usage of her name, asserting her royal brand identity for global streaming subscribers to see. When you examine these incidents together, they do not look like accidental slips or diplomatic courtesies. They form a clear pattern of intentional brand leverage. High-level palace sources close to Prince William have made it abundantly clear to major international outlets that the patience within the royal household has officially run out. The future king's team has reportedly confirmed on the record that these constant boundary-pushing tactics have forced a fundamental shift in strategy. What was once seen as a quiet exit deal meant to let a family member leave with dignity has transformed into a high-stakes legal and corporate battle over the unauthorized commercialization of the crown. The royal family is no longer viewing this as family drama. They are viewing it as a clear case of material misrepresentation that threatens the constitutional boundary between public royal duty and private corporate monetization. To truly understand why Prince William is reportedly taking such an uncompromising stance, you have to look at the sheer scale of the financial collapse that has hit the Sussex enterprise over the past several years. When Harry and Meghan first arrived in California, corporate Hollywood rolled out the red carpet with jaw-dropping, nine-figure checks. Netflix handed over a massive $100 million production deal, Spotify backed them with a multi-million-dollar podcast arrangement, and Penguin Random House secured a historic $20 million publishing deal. The entire commercial value of those astronomical numbers was built on one single premise: exclusive, high-level access to royal storytelling and the pristine prestige of the royal brand. However, the corporate world moves on results, not prestige, and the industry's final verdict has proven brutal. Spotify terminated their arrangement after just one single season of content, with top executive Bill Simmons publicly calling them out in unfiltered terms on his own podcast, labeling the couple with a word that echoed through every boardroom in Los Angeles: frauds. Soon after, Penguin Random House let their massive publishing deal quietly expire without renewal, with corporate insiders revealing that the publisher felt financially burned by the gap between what was promised and what was actually delivered. And the final catastrophic blow arrived when Netflix officially severed ties with Archwell Productions, walking away from their mega deal with a icy four-word insider consensus: "We are done with them." In a span of months, over $120 million in elite corporate backing completely evaporated. Industry analysts point out that when three of the largest media conglomerates on planet Earth arrive at the exact same conclusion within the exact same time frame, it isn't bad luck or bad timing. It is an overwhelming commercial rejection. Every single one of those deals was negotiated around the implied authority of the Sussex brand. Strip away the royal identity, strip away the official titles, and the financial foundation beneath their entire media apparatus instantly crumbles, leaving behind little more than an overpriced lifestyle label attempting to sell homemade jam to an increasingly skeptical consumer base. This financial unraveling coincides directly with a systematic re-examination of the origin story that launched Meghan Markle into global humanitarian prominence in the first place. For over 20 years, Meghan told a captivating story that formed the emotional bedrock of her public persona. The story went that as an 11-year-old girl in Los Angeles, she watched a Procter & Gamble dish soap commercial that used sexist language, grew furious, and wrote letters to powerful figures including Hillary Clinton and the leadership of corporate America. According to her long-standing narrative, her single-handed activist campaign forced a massive corporation to change its national advertisement and earned her a personal response from Clinton herself. She shared this story at the United Nations, highlighted it at global summits, featured it in her Vanity Fair cover story, and repeated it on international tours. Yet, when investigative journalists and professional fact-checkers from top publications like Vanity Fair went looking for basic historical verification, the narrative disintegrated. They contacted Procter & Gamble directly, consulted advertising historians, and checked public records. What they found was complete silence. There was zero corporate record of her letter causing the ad change, and zero archival evidence that Hillary Clinton's office ever sent a personal reply. Even her own father, Thomas Markle, eventually confirmed in a film documentary that the story was heavily embellished, explaining that it was simply a standard school classroom assignment, not a solo crusade that altered corporate America. The most damning piece of evidence, however, came from within Meghan's own public relations operation. Her own team of professional crisis managers and publicists eventually chose to quietly scrub the famous Procter & Gamble story from her official media press kits and background bulletins. PR teams do not erase a celebrity's most famous inspirational origin story because it got old. They erase it when they realize it cannot survive rigorous media scrutiny and has turned into a massive liability. If the very first story used to construct a public humanitarian identity was heavily exaggerated, it casts a dark, unavoidable shadow over every claim, narrative, and corporate pitch made in the years that followed. While her public origin story was facing severe scrutiny, her internal management record was painting an equally concerning picture behind palace gates. During her explosive television interview with Oprah Winfrey, Meghan presented herself as an isolated, unsupported figure who was utterly failed by a cold, uncaring institutional bureaucracy. It was a dramatic narrative that captured global headlines, but it conveniently overlooked a staggering numerical reality that public relations spin simply cannot wash away. Between 2020 and 2026, no fewer than 18 high-level staff members walked out of her professional operation. That represents an astonishing average of 3 senior executive resignations every single year. These were not entry-level assistants or inexperienced workers overwhelmed by media pressure. These were hardened, elite professionals with decades of experience at the highest levels of corporate, diplomatic, and royal service. People who possess stellar professional reputations and every incentive to stay quiet and protect their careers. Yet they chose to walk away anyway. Consider the case of Samantha Cohen, a veteran palace official who spent 17 loyal years serving the British royal family at the highest level. She was brought in specifically to act as Meghan's private secretary and guide her through the complex mechanics of royal life. Originally scheduled to stay for just 6 months to oversee a smooth transition, Cohen ended up staying for 18 agonizing months, not out of choice, but because the household literally could not find a single qualified replacement willing to accept the position permanently. When a potential replacement was finally recruited, the palace flew that individual out to Africa specifically to shadow Cohen on an official tour. The replacement quit before the tour was even completed. Cohen herself later confirmed the extreme difficulty of the environment, and her name became central to a formal internal investigation into workplace bullying funded privately by Queen Elizabeth II herself. The fact that a sitting British monarch took the extraordinary, historic step of personally financing an independent investigation into her own grandson's household demonstrates the severity of the crisis. It was a clear signal that the highest levels of the institution knew the internal dysfunction was real, deeply rooted, and completely unsustainable. The professional revolving door in her office mirrored a strikingly similar pattern within her long-term personal relationships, giving rise to a widely documented social phenomenon that viral culture has termed being Markled. This isn't just an internet catchphrase. It describes a documented behavioral pattern where individuals who served crucial roles in her rise to fame are suddenly, completely, and permanently excised from her life the moment their social or practical utility expires. The list of people subjected to this sudden thermal drop reads like a historical timeline of her life, starting with her childhood best friend of 30 years, Naki Pretty. Naki Pretty and Meghan were virtually inseparable from the age of 2, sharing childhood road trips, European vacations, and decades of private memories. Pretty stood by her side as her maid of honor during her first wedding to Trevor Engelson, supporting her through the marriage and the eventual divorce. Yet, when the royal wedding arrived in 2018, 30 years of deep, foundational friendship were erased overnight. Pretty was not invited, received no explanation, and was met with absolute, icy silence. Pretty later spoke out, using measured, heartbroken language to describe a calculated strategy, where people are cultivated for specific periods, and then coldly dropped without so much as a closing phone call. The exact same fate awaited celebrity stylist Jessica Mulroney, who spent 9 years as Meghan's closest confidant, styling her wardrobe, navigating media storms, and managing logistics for the royal wedding. The moment Mulroney found herself embroiled in a public social media controversy, Meghan ended the 9-year friendship instantly, using the media fallout as a convenient exit ramp to sever ties without looking back. Even media figures like Piers Morgan experienced the exact same pattern. After cultivating a helpful professional alliance with him during her acting days, she met Prince Harry on the very same night she had drinks with Morgan, and never uttered a single word to him again. When you connect all these pieces, the continuous violations of the Sandringham Agreement, the total collapse of over $100 million in commercial deals, the exposed origin story, the 18 executive resignations, and the trail of discarded decades-long friendships, a singular, unified picture emerges. It shows a personal and professional strategy entirely reliant on external branding and temporary leverage. But unlike corporate executives or former friends who simply walked away in silence, the British monarchy is an ancient state institution with vast constitutional authority, and Prince William is reportedly preparing to deploy the ultimate legal tool to close the book on this commercial exploitation once and for all. The core legal mechanism that will permanently resolve this crisis is known as letters patent. While Prince Harry was born a prince and maintains an indelible legal and biological connection to the royal house of Windsor, Meghan Markle's royal status exists purely through marriage via royal prerogative. The title Duchess of Sussex was never hers by birthright. It was a courtesy gift granted by the sovereign. What the crown grants through royal prerogative can be revoked through the exact same legal instrument. Sources close to the future king have confirmed that when Prince William ascends the throne, He has zero intention of allowing the commercial misuse of royal titles to continue. A confirmed source close to Prince William put the situation in brutal, uncompromising terms, stating plainly that there is no way King William will stand for this, and that the titles will simply be stripped when he takes the throne. When that formal letters patent is issued and the titles are legally removed, the legal ripple effect will crash directly into every commercial entity Meghan has partnered with since 2020. Corporate lawyers call it material misrepresentation, a scenario where a commercial brand was built and sold on a title that the individual agreed in writing not to monetize, and which ultimately ceases to exist legally. This creates a terrifying retroactive liability for any investor, streaming network, or retail partner. They are left asking whether they entered contracts with a genuine royal entity, or with an independent actress leveraging a borrowed brand name that was bound to be revoked. Unlike a temporary PR crisis or a passing tabloid headline, material misrepresentation does not fade away with time. It compounds, opening the door for complex litigation, corporate audits, and the total collapse of brand valuation. The lifestyle label selling high-end jams and consumer goods suddenly loses the single luxury attribute that justified its inflated pricing structure. Even the media world's defensive strategy has crumbled under legal scrutiny. Consider investigative author Tom Bower, who published 2 blistering, highly detailed books exposing the inner workings of the Sussex operation, citing over 80 named and unnamed sources. Despite Meghan's reputation for deploying aggressive legal teams against media outlets for minor misreports, Bower has not faced a single successful legal challenge. That absolute legal silence speaks volumes. It proves that the paper trail, the signed documents, and the witness testimonies are legally airtight, making any courtroom challenge far more dangerous for the Sussexes than for the author reporting the truth. The paper trail is permanent. The signed Sandringham agreement remains published on the royal website, the camera footage from Netflix cannot be erased, and the internal testimony of 18 departed staff members stands as an undeniable historical record. Prince William's strategy is not driven by personal revenge or tabloid drama. It is a cold, calculated, and institutional defense of the monarchy's integrity. The institution that Meghan spent years attempting to outmaneuver is preparing to use her very own tactic against her. A move that is cold, clean, total, and final. When the legal foundation is officially removed and the 2 words driving the commercial engine are taken away, the Sussex brand will be forced to stand on its own merits, stripped of royal glamour and institutional protection. The clock is ticking down on an operation that ran out of corporate runway, out of staff, and ultimately, out of options. As the royal transition approaches, the ultimate reckoning over truth, titles, and legal accountability is no longer a distant theoretical scenario. It is an active process unfolding in real time before a global audience. This brings us to the ultimate question that every royal watcher and legal analyst is now forced to confront. When you look at the total picture, the documented title violations, the $100 million corporate collapses, the discredited origin stories, and the impending deployment of letters patent, which element do you think represents the most devastating blow to the Sussex legacy? Is it the legal exposure of material misrepresentation, the undeniable pattern of staff departures, or the ultimate constitutional authority of a future king who has drawn an unbreakable line in the sand? To understand how deep this structural unraveling goes, you have to trace the precise mechanics of how the commercial strategy was constructed in the immediate aftermath of the exit. When Harry and Meghan stepped back from their roles as senior working royals in January 2020, the entire narrative pitch presented to the public and to top-tier global investors was one of liberation, modern brand building, and unprecedented global reach. The world was told that freed from the alleged constraints of the institutional apparatus, the couple would construct a multi-tiered media empire built on progressive values, elite production quality, and authentic human connection. They moved to Montecito, secured representation from the most powerful talent agency in Hollywood, and began conducting high-stakes pitch meetings with boardrooms across North America. The immediate financial response was staggering. Netflix stepped forward with a reported $100 million overall deal designed to transform Archwell Productions into a major content hub for high-end documentaries, feature films, scripted drama, and children's programming. Spotify followed suit with a multi-million-dollar exclusive podcasting partnership, while major publishing house Penguin Random House secured a multi-book deal valued at upwards of $20 million. On paper, it was the most lucrative corporate pivot in the history of modern celebrity culture. The market valuation was derived entirely from one core asset: direct, exclusive access to the Sussex brand identity and its unique, unbroken connection to the House of Windsor. However, corporate capital requires deliverables, and deliverables require operational stability. It was within the internal mechanics of Archewell that the structural integrity of the enterprise began to fracture almost immediately. Behind the glossy press releases and high-profile summit appearances, the day-to-day reality of running a global media company revealed a chaotic, high-turnover environment that industry veterans found increasingly impossible to navigate. Between 2020 and 2026, a staggering total of 18 high-level executives, media advisors, project directors, and communications experts abruptly resigned from the Sussex's personal and professional operations. This was not a minor administrative turnover. It was an unprecedented exodus of top-tier industry talent. These were individuals handpicked from the upper echelons of corporate public relations, major Hollywood studios, non-profit management, and elite diplomatic service. When Mandana Dayani, who served as the president of Archewell and managed the couple's strategic portfolio, stepped down, the official narrative framed it as a planned, amicable transition. But when her departure was followed in rapid succession by senior communications leads, veteran producers, and top-level strategists, the corporate pattern became undeniable. The impact on content production was immediate and catastrophic. Netflix spent years waiting for a slate of promised projects, only to receive a single, highly controversial autobiographical docuseries, and a handful of quietly received background projects. Promising initiatives, such as the animated children's series Pearl, were quietly canceled before ever reaching production as the streaming giant began tightening its corporate belt. At Spotify, the situation was even more dire. Despite years of holding an exclusive multi-million-dollar contract, the partnership produced just 12 episodes of a single podcast series. The disparity between the massive capital outlay and the actual output created intense internal friction within the audio giant's executive ranks. When the Spotify contract was officially terminated, the usual polite, scripted corporate platitudes were completely cast aside. Spotify executive and media mogul Bill Simmons took to his public podcast platform to deliver a brutal, unfiltered autopsy of the business relationship. He publicly criticized the couple's work ethic and labeled them with a word that went viral across every corporate entertainment desk in the world: frauds. That singular assessment coming from an executive inside the building signaled a seismic shift in how Hollywood viewed the Sussex commercial enterprise. It was no longer seen as a goldmine of elite content. It was viewed as a high-risk, low-yield liability. The final corporate dominoes fell in rapid succession. Penguin Random House, having published Harry's record-breaking memoir Spare, allowed their multi-book arrangement to quietly expire without renewal, with publishing sources confirming that the financial return did not justify the massive advance payments and long-term brand damage. The climax of this financial retraction arrived when Netflix officially ended its overall deal with Archewell Productions. Industry trade publications reported that the internal mood at the streaming giant was summarized in 4 icy words: "We are done with them." In total, over $120 million in corporate backing vanished within a concentrated timeframe, when 3 of the largest media companies in entertainment history simultaneously conclude that a partnership is unviable. It cannot be written off as bad luck or harsh media coverage. It is a decisive market correction. The commercial thesis that justified those astronomical contracts had failed. The market realized that once the initial complaints against the royal family had been voiced, there was very little substantive, repeatable content left to sell. This commercial collapse exposed an even deeper vulnerability: the validity of the personal origin story that had been used to establish Meghan Markle's credentials as a lifelong social crusader and global humanitarian. For over 2 decades, the cornerstone of Meghan's public biographical identity was an 11-year-old schoolgirl's campaign against sexism in corporate advertising. As the story went, after watching a national Procter & Gamble dish soap commercial that used the phrase, "Women all over America," she wrote letters to Hillary Clinton, news anchor Linda Ellerby, attorney Gloria Allred, and the CEO of Procter & Gamble. The narrative claimed her single-handed intervention forced the corporate giant to change the national advertisement to people all over America. Meghan recounted this story on major international platforms, including the United Nations, global leadership conferences, glossy magazine profiles, and televised interviews. It served as the primary narrative proof that she possessed an innate, historic drive for activism. But when investigative journalists and professional fact-checkers from publications like Vanity Fair conducted a rigorous historical audit, the foundational elements of the story failed to hold up under basic scrutiny. Fact-checkers reached out directly to Procter & Gamble corporate archives, reviewed advertising logs from the era, and interviewed advertising historians. They found zero documentary evidence that her specific letter triggered a national corporate policy shift. Furthermore, archival checks revealed no record or confirmation that Hillary Clinton's office had ever sent a personal response to the 11-year-old student. The narrative received a further blow when her own father, Thomas Markle, confirmed in a filmed interview that the event had been heavily romanticized, explaining that it was actually part of a routine, class-wide social studies assignment rather than an isolated, heroic campaign that reshaped corporate America. The ultimate proof of the story's unreliability came from Meghan's own high-priced crisis management team. Professional PR advisors quietly removed the Procter & Gamble narrative from her official background briefs and press kits sent to journalists. Public relations agencies do not remove a client's signature inspirational story out of boredom. They delete it when it presents a severe liability during independent media fact-checking. If the foundational narrative used to build a global humanitarian brand could not survive basic investigative journalism, every subsequent claim made under that brand umbrella was subjected to fresh skepticism. This pattern of narrative manipulation extended directly into her long-standing personal relationships, where those who had known her longest found themselves abruptly severed from her orbit the moment their social or practical utility was exhausted. This dynamic was so consistent and widely documented that public commentary coined a specific term for it, being markled. The process describes a cold, total excision of friends, family members, and professional allies without prior warning, direct confrontation, or long-term closure. The most striking example remains her 30-year friendship with Naki Pretty. The two grew up together in Los Angeles from early childhood, sharing family holidays, teenage milestones, and life secrets. Pretty stood as the maid of honor at Meghan's first wedding to producer Trevor Engelson in 2011, providing emotional support through the marriage and the subsequent divorce. Yet, when the royal wedding took place at Windsor Castle in 2018, 30 years of shared history were instantly erased. Pretty was excluded from the guest list, cut off from communication, and left in total silence. Pretty later spoke publicly, describing a calculated, highly strategic approach to personal relationships where individuals are cultivated while useful and discarded without a second thought once they no longer fit the forward narrative. A virtually identical scenario played out with Canadian socialite and stylist Jessica Mulroney. For nearly a decade, Mulroney was Meghan's ultimate confidant, styling her wardrobe for public events, helping manage her media strategy during the early stages of her relationship with Prince Harry, and standing at the center of the royal wedding operations. But in the summer of 2020, when Mulroney became entangled in a public social media disagreement with a digital creator, Meghan severed all contact instantly. Sources close to the situation noted that rather than standing by a decade-long friend, Meghan used the public controversy as a convenient excuse to permanently eliminate a potential brand liability. Even established media figures were subjected to the exact same dynamic. Journalist Piers Morgan documented how Meghan cultivated a social media acquaintance with him during her time on the television show Suits, culminating in a meeting at a London pub to discuss media strategy. That very evening, she met Prince Harry at a private club, and from that moment forward, Morgan was completely ghosted. When individuals across different decades, industries, and social spheres describe the exact same cold, transactional exit strategy, it ceases to be a series of unfortunate coincidences. It becomes a documented behavioral profile. As these personal, professional, and commercial collapses accelerated, the Sussex brand attempted to pivot once again, relying heavily on the one asset that remained: their formal royal titles. But in doing so, they ran directly into the legal and constitutional boundary laid down in January 2020 at Sandringham, a boundary that Prince William is now reportedly preparing to enforce with absolute, uncompromising legal finality. The Sandringham Agreement was not a gentleman's agreement, nor was it a vague set of soft suggestions designed to be rewritten whenever convenient. It was a formal, binding operational exit framework negotiated at the absolute highest level of the British monarchy, signed off by Queen Elizabeth II, and uploaded directly to the official royal website where it remains permanently documented to this day. The terms laid out in that document were crystalline. In exchange for stepping down from active royal duties and pursuing private financial independence, Harry and Meghan were strictly prohibited from using their Her Royal Highness and His Royal Highness titles in any public, commercial, or professional venture. That was the solemn condition of their exit. Yet across social media platforms, commercial streaming networks, and promotional products, those exact forbidden styles have reappeared in plain sight, created directly by or in collaboration with the Duchess herself. These breaches are not tabloid speculation. They are hard, documented realities that exist on permanent record. The first major public breach occurred when Meghan published official diplomatic correspondence on her commercial social media accounts, showcasing the forbidden HRH title sitting boldly at the top of the letterhead to millions of global followers without any disclaimer, caption, or diplomatic context. Shortly after, high-profile media figures and podcast hosts, including Jamie King, received lavish, commercial gift boxes directly from Meghan's team bearing personal branding materials that explicitly featured the HRH styling. But the most undeniable, bulletproof evidence arrived directly on camera during high-budget production filming for Netflix. When actress Mindy Kaling referred to her informally as Meghan Markle during an on-camera scene, Meghan directly interrupted the flow of production to correct her in her own voice, pointedly asserting her royal brand status by stating she was Sussex now. That single broadcast moment destroyed any lingering legal defense that the usage of royal styling was merely an unsolicited courtesy extended by foreign third parties or confused international diplomats. It was a direct on-camera commercial correction executed by Meghan herself on a major streaming platform watched by tens of millions of paying subscribers. Corporate lawyers and intellectual property experts point out that this systematic usage creates a severe legal exposure, known as material misrepresentation. When commercial entities, investors, and retail partners enter multi-million-dollar distribution deals based on a personal brand identity, and that brand identity relies heavily on royal titles that the individual agreed in writing never to monetize, the very foundation of those commercial contracts becomes legally toxic. Within the corridors of Kensington Palace, these continuous title violations have pushed Prince William past the point of quiet diplomacy. Sources close to the future king have confirmed to senior media outlets, including the Daily Beast, that the palace is no longer treating these incidents as minor family friction, but as a deliberate, ongoing exploitation of the monarchy's institutional authority. The confirmed position from William's camp is devastatingly simple and entirely uncompromising. When he ascends the throne, the titles will be stripped permanently. A formal way will be found through official royal mechanisms, and there will be zero room for appeal, renegotiation, or PR reframing. The primary legal instrument that will be deployed to finalize this process is known as letters patent. While Prince Harry was born a royal prince with an indelible constitutional lineage to the House of Windsor, Meghan Markle's royal status exists purely through marriage via royal prerogative. The title of Duchess of Sussex was a courtesy title granted as a gift by the sovereign. Under British constitutional law, what is granted by royal prerogative can be revoked through the exact same mechanism. When King William issues that definitive letters patent and strips those titles from the official register, every commercial venture, lifestyle brand, and corporate deal attached to the Sussex name will face an immediate, catastrophic devaluation. The moment that title is legally removed, the entire commercial premise of the Sussex enterprise collapses. The high-end lifestyle brand's selling preserves, home goods, and consumer products at luxury price points suddenly lose the singular royal aura that justified their existence in the marketplace. A lifestyle label driven by a former television actress selling jam in California carries a vastly different commercial valuation than one operated by an active Duchess of Sussex. Strip away the royal foundation, and the commercial floor vanishes completely, leaving behind an overpriced consumer project stripped of institutional leverage. This impending legal reckoning explains why investigative authors and journalists who have documented these internal mechanics have remained entirely unassailable. Investigative writer Tom Bower published 2 explosive, deeply researched books detailing the inner workings, staff complaints, and commercial maneuvers of the Sussex operation, drawing on over 80 primary sources. Despite Meghan's famously aggressive legal team, which has historically issued formal legal warnings and filing suits over minor newspaper reporting, Bower has not faced a single successful legal challenge. That total legal silence from her attorneys speaks volumes. It proves that the documentary evidence, the signed contracts, the witness statements, and the paper trail are legally airtight, making any courtroom battle far more dangerous for the Sussexes than for the journalists reporting the reality. When you connect every thread of this multi-year narrative, the overarching pattern becomes impossible to ignore. You have a signed, binding Sandringham agreement published on the royal website that was repeatedly breached across commercial platforms. You have the total collapse of over $120 million in major corporate partnerships with Netflix, Spotify, and Penguin Random House, culminating in top executives publicly labeling them as frauds and walking away. You have an inspirational origin story regarding Procter & Gamble that failed basic journalistic fact checks at Vanity Fair and was confirmed as heavily romanticized by her own father, leading her own PR team to quietly delete it from press materials. You have an unprecedented internal exit record of 18 senior staff members walking out in 6 years, triggering an independent internal workplace review funded directly by Queen Elizabeth II. And finally, you have an unbroken trail of discarded decades-long personal friendships and professional alliances that gave rise to the documented social phenomenon of being Markled. The British monarchy is an ancient institution operating on time frames measured in centuries, not news cycles or social media trends. For years, the palace deployed a strategy of silent patience, allowing the commercial enterprise to run its course and exhaust its own institutional capital in the court of public opinion. But as Prince William prepares for his ultimate constitutional role, the strategy has shifted from passive tolerance to cold, legal precision. The future king is preparing to deploy the exact same tactic that has defined Meghan's own path. A move that is cold, clean, total, and final. When the letters patent is formally issued, the 2 words that powered the entire commercial engine will be permanently erased from the paper trail. The clock is ticking down on an enterprise built on borrowed foundations, and no amount of PR rebranding, product launches, or media manipulation can halt the legal process already set in motion. The ultimate resolution of the Sussex saga will not be decided in Hollywood boardrooms or on streaming platforms, but in the quiet, binding records of British constitutional law, where the truth, the paper trail, and the authority of the crown will finally settle the question once and for all. This brings us to the ultimate reckoning. When you look at the total, undeniable picture, the documented title violations, the $120 million corporate collapse, the discredited origin stories, the 18 staff departures, and Prince William's impending deployment of letters patent, the truth becomes impossible to ignore. The house of cards is not just cracking, it is coming down in real time, legally, financially, and publicly. Which part of this story do you think is the final nail in the coffin? Is it the legal nightmare of material misrepresentation, the complete loss of Hollywood backing, or the quiet authority of a future king preparing to take back what was borrowed? Drop your analysis in the comments below. I want to read every single one of your takes on this. If you appreciate deep, unfiltered breakdowns that give you the full facts without holding back, make sure to hit that like button right now. It takes 1 second, costs nothing, and helps this video reach thousands of people who are looking for the raw truth. Subscribe to Palace Insider, turn on all notifications, and share this video across your social media. Stay sharp, stay informed, and I'll see you in the very